Well, Sawyer, you work in mental health. You have your own mental health coaching business. You're a mental performance coach. Kind of just tell us what all your job entails right now. Obviously, mental health is a very vast topic that folks, I don't know, I think it's almost been, granularized into like a buzzword kind of deal.
Yep.
Um, but what I'd like to do is, you talk about sort of exactly what you do and kind of your side of it and sort of what you work on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I have a private practice in Anderson, so I'm an upstate person, not far from the Orange School, so about 30 minutes from there. So certainly, I have people walk in my office, and the first picture they see is a big hand holding a Gamecock helmet with the block seal and the white helmet, and they're like, "Oh," I'm like, it's okay, it's okay. So certainly enjoy doing that day to day. I see kids, teens, couples. I do some marriage counseling, do some depression, anxiety, a lot of that broader subject stuff. The big part of what I like to do and what I do is working with athletes. Sometimes that's athletes who are injured, athletes who are ending their career, athletes who are transitioning, who face personal struggles, things like that are some of the things that I do in engaging those. I've worked with some teams. I've worked with professional athletes on lower levels. So I've enjoyed a lot of that aspect of what I do. It certainly keeps me on my toes for sure.
Sawyer, one thing I caught when you're talking about that right there that kind of sticks out to me sometimes, and it's something. All right, so it's something I cannot relate to, but I can in a way. I didn't suffer any kind of anguish because of it. But my dad told me when I was a kid, you quit playing football. We all quit playing football at certain levels, right? And a bunch of us drop off as the levels get higher. And it's not the type of game where you can just go hang out with like me and Phil don't get together and drink beer and go play 11 on 11 in the backyard.
Right, for good reason.
Right.
But man, I'll be honest. I still have dreams about suiting up and playing, and sometimes I'm like my age and playing. I'm worried about my eligibility in high school, right? And I'm like in high school and I'm 45 and I'm like, I'm the old guy. They're probably not going to be eligible for the playoffs if they catch me, but I'm doing good. But I don't worry about my health and all that. But it's true. Even like with me, I cannot imagine being a professional or being someone that played at a higher level and that the game was just part of their life for 20 years and all of a sudden it's gone. So talk about that. It sounds to me like it could be trauma. It could be a little trauma there.
It could be very difficult. I've worked with some lower level golfers trying to make it on the tour. There's no guaranteed contracts in that. So it's pretty much you make or you break it. It's not we'll give you a year or 2 years or we'll give you $75,000 just to be on the practice squad on an NFL roster. This is their next meal, somewhat literally, is based on, all right, do I make this cut this tournament? Do I hang around? Does my injury limit me from doing that, or do I go into business sales or other topics? So certainly that's something very, very challenging. One of the things I think that Coach Beamer is doing an excellent job of, and certainly hiring Derek Moore as a home run hire, is the culture he's creating is he is going to put them in an excellent position as much as possible to compete. And that's one of their key, they have several key aspects or focuses. I don't know what they call them, values, maybe key values is the right word. Compete, love, gratitude. I think gratitude is that. Certainly the highlight video last week of them walking to the top of Williams-Brice and kind of saying, hey, here's what's going on. And I think that's what it takes. I think it's saying, I'm grateful to play this game. I'm grateful to get an opportunity to get an education in case I do get significantly injured and my career ends. Certainly I was in Williams-Brice to see Marcus Lattimore get his injury. I remember that very, very vividly. Remember the second injury as well. And he's just one of the examples of people who've done well moving on, that their career didn't develop like it hoped. certainly I was just taking note of the athletes that we're counting on this year for the Gamecocks who have had some kind of injury. Obviously, Marshawn Lloyd, coming back. Van Kroger recently. Gerard Green, Mo Kaba, Dylan Wanham, Jordan Birch, Marion Brown, Gene Bell, Luke Doty, DeHarian Joyner, Jordan Strong, Austin Sogner, Tyreek Johnson, Brad Johnson, Terrell Dawkins, Rick Sandage, Christian Beal Smith, Corey Rucker, and that's not even an exhaustive list. That's just a very short snapshot. Now, some of it is some bumps and bruises and things like that, but most of those I mentioned missed game time. Pretty much all those that I mentioned missed game time and or had some serious treatment, possibly even surgery. So I think part of what I think is important for players of all levels, whether it's high school, college, is football is great. It's I love it. It's a great game. I love my job, but certainly I have other things that I enjoy. I enjoy some hobbies, my family. Certainly Gamecock, I'm passionate about that. So I think for those that are in football, it's where are your other things. Certainly they have a recording studio there in the facility. And I think that's one of the things that they try and do. They teach cooking classes and nutrition. So again, the culture is very developmental, and we want to set you up to be successful as you can as a Gamecock student athlete, making touchdowns, making tackles, interceptions, pancakes, all those things. But also we want to put you in a position to where you are as a whole person developed. And that is where people are able to kind of bounce back and have some success from injury. And they're able to, that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It does. But those that are most successful, whether it's short term or long term, certainly Marshawn Lloyd, you mentioned the spin move, JC. He looks great. And I look forward to seeing that in the first game versus Georgia State. So there's lots of athletes that are bouncing back. And it's not easy to do. Very, very challenging. I think as fans, sometimes they misunderstand. Well, gosh, he just had a little bummed ankle. Why is he, coaches said he's good. He doesn't look good. So I think that's part of it. It's a tough process. And it's much, much tougher than I think sometimes fans see or understand.
Yeah, I agree. I was with you. I was not at Williams-Rice for the second Lattimore injury. I was actually in Starkville, Mississippi in 2011 for the first one. And, Marcus had not had any injuries. I saw him I saw a game against St. Thomas Aquinas when he was at Burns, and he happened to fumble a bunch that game for some reason. But, man, just took some shots. That kid took incredible shots and kept on going. And that was certainly sad. But we're all proud of Marcus and, and what he's accomplished. And he's – and I told him one time, I said, man, I think we were just talking. It was after he had left South Carolina. I said, I think your calling may be beyond football. Like you may impact more lives than you would have had you played in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And I honestly believe that. Politics and stuff like that aside, some people don't like his politics, but that's not the point.
Right.
So I have a friend now. Or I have a couple of friends that sometimes have hard times letting go of things. And I've had a hard time with that too. So I can't imagine an athlete, and you mentioned, I think we're trying to say having a balance in life. It's not just about one thing. I think that's very important. I have my hobbies, unfortunately my hobby became my job, and I love that part of it because I don't have to have what I call a real job. Right. And so, I had to kind of get into some other things. So I like to write, and I like politics and movies and stuff like that. But, sometimes people go through something traumatic where they lose something, right? And everything they have in life that they enjoy doing is related to that one thing. How do you break and I'm sure this applies to football when it's finally over. How do you break free of that if you hadn't prepared to have that balance?
Well, a big comparison that's used is often as if you literally lost someone, whether you've had a family member, if you lost a job, if you got injured, there's very much a comparison between that, getting injured, finishing your last year of sports. It's almost like a death. So there's some stages counselors just kind of go through with our clients that's stages of grief process. Part of it's shock denial. It's kind of the first stage. Then it goes to anger, then to bargaining, then to depression, then to acceptance. It's usually the flow of how things go. So sometimes, let's say someone lost their job. So I had a contract with the state, and my contract ended with COVID. I was in my 13th year maybe of counseling, and had this contract and been established, getting benefits, all those things. All of a sudden, contract comes up, COVID year, boom, you're done. So I'm having to make a shift, figure out how do I get covered benefits for my family. Those things happen. So part of it was, a little bit of denial, shock. Oh my gosh, it's kind of over. Bargaining. Okay, well, is there a way that I can, make ends meet? What can I do to kind of keep this going? And then go through different stages. And some are not as intense as others, but I think that's the process that a lot of people go through. I think one of the things that we can do, so some tips that we can do, one, I would say keep our mind on where the goal is. I think that's important. Whatever our goal is, if it's in work, okay, our job is to be in sales. Okay, well, maybe this sales job didn't work out. Okay, let me shift, go to something different. Maybe I'm a caretaker. Okay, how do I can continue using those skills just in a different way. So sometimes it's trying to reapply those things and remember what's our main goal. And that goes back to the broader picture. Part of our main goal is in our work, in our family, but it's also to kind of get that bigger picture. And I think it's also limiting some of our expectations too. I think we go through and then all of a sudden we're hit. And it's like, oh man, I didn't, we get blindsided, and that happens. But day to day, how do we kind of limit our expectations? If the players going through fall camp have this expectation, I'm not going to get injured. I'm not going to get injured. I'm not going to miss time. I'm going to be great. I'm going to have the best year ever. And all of a sudden injured, bam. I think it's very tough. So one experience that I had a couple of months ago, maybe 2 months ago. So I have a almost 5-month-old in the household, and then I have a 6-year-old in the household. So I had a long, exhausting day at work, came home. My wife, the plan was she was going to have dinner. I had some later appointments, so it was, oh, great. I'll walk in, have some supper, see the kids, help out with bath time, da-da-da. Walk in, both kids screaming and crying. Supper's not done. Clothes are everywhere. Dishes are everywhere. So it's kind of like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. So my anxiety, I say anxiety, frustration level, anxiety, tension, it shot up pretty rapidly. So one of the things that we have is like a balance. We have our emotions and our thinking, and if our emotions go up, our thinking goes down. So one of the first things I did was, all right, let me grab a breath. And so I think that's one of the first things we do. We go in the morning, all of a sudden we get in our car, flat tire.
Oh,
it's going to ruin the day. All right.
It's the worst.
Grab a breath. Okay. What's my goal? All right. I'm okay. And I literally had to do that. Here I am talking to people about that. And then I'm having to apply that to myself. And it changed that 30 seconds of me stopping, taking a breath and regrouping mentally changed the rest of my evening. Because if I would have, my emotions really taken over, things would have not gone well. It would have been conflict with kids, conflict with wife. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't this done? Why are they doing, all that stuff. But just taking a break. All right, 30 seconds. All right now. All right, I can't do all this tonight. Can't fix everything. I think that's the other thing. We can't, sometimes we think things are great or things are bad. And usually our days are not like that. Usually things are not great and things are not awful. Usually it's in the middle. So if we can kind of say, all right, pause for a second, take a breath, we regroup. All right, what can I do right now in this moment? Okay, and for me, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to ask my wife, what does she need? And now I'll kind of go down from there. And she was like, help with one of the kids. Great. And I was able to kind of bring down my emotional level. So I didn't yell at anybody or take it out on anybody or give any spankings that didn't need to be given and, all that stuff. So I was able to just kind of dial it down a notch. All right. refocus. And again, that's another aspect, is kind of using that self-talk and being persistent and not getting stuck. We're going to go through tough days. We're going to go through flat tires. We're going to go through people bumping us and rear-ending us. We're going to go through awful work meetings. So part of it is, how do we not get stuck? And part is just like, all right, let me take a deep breath. What's the big goal? What am I trying to focus on? And think about how we can kind of get back on that task and not get stuck in a ditch, which is sometimes where we don't want to end up. And that's where things snowball and get worse, and we become more irritable and more frustrated, more depressed and more anxious. So our circumstances aren't going to get magically fixed, but in the midst of that, until they do, what can we do?
Right. And Sawyer, kind of in that vein, and since you work with athletes, primarily, I guess, how much are you seeing an uptick of these players coming to you and seeking, non-performance or career related issues with you through, the whole destigmatization with mental health? Are you seeing an uptick in these guys just coming to you for that day-to-day stuff?
Yes, I would certainly say so. Certainly for younger athletes, there's parental pressure. I know some athletes that the idea of year-round baseball, year-round soccer, year-round sports is it blows my mind that people are throwing the amount of money and energy that they're taking. And I don't want to go too much on that topic, but that's one of the things that certainly student athletes come and they're like, I'm just burned out, or I'm just stressed. And they may be anxious, and it may be appearing in their performance, but then it's also appearing in other areas in school. Certainly schools getting started back, handling that, the pressures of that, social media, all those other things. So certainly sometimes people will come to me just for those other things. And sometimes they'll initially come to me and say it's a sport thing, but all of a sudden, well, a sport thing, but it also appears elsewhere too. So I do see a lot of that. In the staff at Carolina, just to let you know, they have 4 staff. One's a medical doctor, he's a psychiatrist. 2 are full-time professors. And then 1 is a full-time mental health person, actually a 5th. There's 1 other person that's part-time. So while there appears to be some support, they are tapped out. They are maximized, So I know within Carolina athletics that there's a high demand there. And I think administration, their long-term goal is to kind of beef that up. But certainly when you have NIL and you have videos of, I saw this video yesterday, Alabama player, the train table, huge ribeye steak, and he's grabbing it. They have to balance those things, and you don't want to say, well, mine's the most important, because everybody says that. That's a hard job that they have to figure out. But certainly that's something it is a big topic, and I hope that coverage can be not only for the Gamecocks, but for other student athletes that need to be seen as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to have you on several times, and probably just to address a mental health topic. And Carolina they have maximized, what they're, but I think, a guy like Derek Moore, who I've known for forever, is a huge part of all that.
Absolutely.
And I think that, they'll continue to build that portion out. And I think we'll see it in places like Alabama and Georgia, and just Clemson, wherever you name the program. It's too important to kind of let go by the wayside. All right, so let's take it back to performance on the field, right? And you mentioned your day gets sidetracked by this, that, or the other. I'm of the belief, you've got about 4 minutes here to get your answer on it. That the teams that play the best are the teams that, when that adversity hits in football, and Derek actually always says football is an allegory of life. And I believe there's probably no game that is as much. I'm probably a little biased about that because I love football, but I do believe that. And I think, when you think about, some of the better teams Steve Spurrier had here, or he had in his career, they always just, Florida, South Carolina, wherever, they just kept playing. Duke, they just kept playing.
Yep.
they'd get hit in the jaw or what. I mean, seemed like every single game at Florida, the other team would get up 7-0, and then he'd figure out how to call plays and kill them. That adversity and learning how to deal with that adversity, I think a lot of times is the difference between winning and losing. Your thoughts?
Well, I think you used the key word, learning. Athletes come. I'll say Gamecocks. We'll kind of go specific. They arrive on campus with a lot of physical skills, and some of them have the mental capacity. But I think the staff does an excellent job. Again, going back to culture that Coach Beamer, at least from what I've seen, Coach Beamer is developing, is the putting them in positions. He's talking about changing practice up. He's talking about doing different things so that they can be flexible. I think when things are so routine and all of a sudden you get hit, that's when it's a challenge. But I think being flexible and also going back to the learning aspect, we have to learn things. I've had to learn how to, I got comfortable with my 6-year-old, and all of a sudden, boom, another kid, oh boy, it kind of hit the reset button, and I kind of realized, okay, I got to learn. So I think we're always in a learning environment, learning experience, and I think that's one of the things that the players, in order to perform at their best, they have to learn, they have to grow, they have to develop, and thank goodness they have, fall camp to do a lot of that. And certainly, you can't ever simulate a week 1 game in fall practice. One of the things if I was football czar for a day, I would say, all right, let's take one of the FCS opponents and let's have that as a preseason game and not count against the schedule. And let's take away that during the regular season. So I would say no playing FCS schools during the regular season. But let's take a game versus an FCS opponent preseason, and that would be a warm-up. So I don't know what idea you'd like there, but
I'd definitely be down with that. We talked about it here. Actually, it's funny you brought that up because we talked about this earlier about no scrimmages or no no exhibitions. But what happens when Wofford plays Auburn and beats them in the scrimmage, and they fire Harsin after they lost to Wofford in the scrimmage? Just because people are so But I get it. That's why coaches don't want it, because you could lose. You could lose, and you could lose the scrimmage, and everybody hates you. And then, they'd almost have to not keep score. I would think, like ASO soccer, like give them orange slices afterward or something. But
it'd be tough. But figuring out a way again just to be flexible and learn,
simulate that adversity. And there's not another level of football that doesn't play a scrimmage. I mean, our kid going into 9th grade, he's on the C team at Lockport Township High School in Illinois. Go Porters! He's got a scrimmage next Friday. That's the C team. That's the freshman team.
Right.
Starting at guard, by the way, very proud of him. But it's like you don't get to simulate it at all. And in college football, you're just kind of thrown to the wolves. I think that's sometimes why, even though there's not a lot of upsets in week 1, we don't always know about everybody in week 1 based on that performance. Like last year, everybody thought Georgia's offense was going to be.
Oh, I think we may have just lost JC. Sawyer.
Well, one last thing I wanted to kind of do, and you mentioned this, contacted you. I noticed that Carolina Rise certainly has the new hats that came in. So one of the things I wanted to do was have people reach out through Nana's chat box, through contacts, either asking questions or giving comments, and also reaching out through the non-live access polls. I guess that's at Inside the Gamecocks. And
or I help consulting mailbag. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Yeah, we'd love to field any questions.
I would like to see people engage and interact that way. I'm one who listens to things via Spotify, so I don't catch the show live just because I'm seeing people and working and all those things. But I'd love to see people just reach out. And so I'd like to give away, and I'll catch up with JC, either a shirt or a hat for people that and say, have a question for me. We'll throw your name in the hat for the next, we'll let this go through maybe Wednesday, and then draw a name out of the hat on Thursday for people that submit questions, and they'll get through me, they'll get a hat or a shirt. So I'd like people to kind of engage and interact and give some feedback or ask some questions. So.
Oh yeah, love that. Just as somebody who's also dealt with some mental health struggles, I'm always open to hearing new skills, man. So I'm looking forward to you coming back.
Well, appreciate
pick
you
your brain,
having me
use
on.
it as a personal therapy session, man. But yeah, we will have you back. Sawyer, where can they find you? What's your website?
My website
Twitter?
is simply my name, www.sawyernix.com. Also on Twitter at Sawyer Nix, SAWYERNIX.
Excellent. Well, Sawyer, we look forward to having you back. We'll wait till JC gets his self, back together again. Hopefully, he's still got some power. But either way, we're going to roll on through, and
All right.
we will
Thank
see
you.
you then, sir. We appreciate having you. Thank you, Sawyer.
Right. Bye.
Bye.